Autumn's crisp air swirled through the window, playfully tugging at the curtains. It carried with it the scent of freshly baked cake and the joyous laughter of children that filled my cozy home. It was my son Ben's 5th birthday. Watching him gleefully play with his friends, my heart overflowed with love. But deep within, a shadowed corner of my past stirred, a stark contrast to the happiness that surrounded me, the memory of the day my parents threw me out at 16. We were once a normal family, but the happiness was fleeting. My father, a man consumed by gambling, drowned our family in debt. My mother, resigned to fate, worked tirelessly to keep up with his dues. Inevitably, their frustration turned into blame, and I became the scapegoat, the source of their misfortune. The day arrived without warning. After a disastrous loss at the gambling den, my father unleashed his fury on me. He spewed insults, curses, and finally threw me out. I looked at my mother, pain and betrayal twisting in my gut, hoping for a word, a gesture of comfort. But she just stood there, head bowed, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. At 16, alone and afraid, I stepped out into the cold, unforgiving night. Tears mingled with the relentless rain as I wandered aimlessly. The pain of abandonment, the fear of an uncertain future threatened to consume me. But like a flicker of light in the darkness, I met Ms. Lan, a kind woman who ran a food stall. She took me in, offering me shelter and a chance to rebuild my life. Years passed, filled with hard work, self-education, and a quiet determination to rise above my past. I met David, a kind and loving man, and we built a life together, culminating in the miracle of our son, Ben. The sharp ring of the doorbell shattered my thoughts. I looked through the peephole, my heart lurching to a stop. Standing on my doorstep were my parents, two figures I hadn't seen in years. My father was gaunt, his hair streaked with gray. My mother remained unchanged, a picture of quiet suffering, her face etched with the passage of time. They mumbled apologies for the unexpected visit, their eyes downcast. A wave of resentment washed over me, but then I saw Ben's innocent gaze upon us, and I swallowed my anger. "Come in," I said, my voice strained with the effort of holding back a torrent of emotions. As they stepped inside, the sight of our humble home, filled with the warmth of family and the laughter of children, seemed to steal their voices. They shifted uncomfortably, their gazes darting around the room, finally settling on Ben. He looks just like you," my mother choked out, her voice thick with etched hairs. My father remained silent, his eyes fixed on Ben, a flicker of something akin to regret flitting across his features. We sat in the living room, the tension so thick it was almost palpable. My parents kept glancing at me, then at each other, as if searching for the right words. Finally, my father cleared his throat, his voice raspy. We are in trouble," he confessed, shame tinging his words. "Your mother and we lost everything, our house, our savings, gone." My mother dabbed at her eyes with a worn handkerchief, her shoulders shaking. "We have nowhere to go," she whispered. They avoided my gaze, their shame almost unbearable to witness. I knew what was coming. The reason for their sudden reappearance was unfolding before me. They weren't here to mend broken bridges, but to exploit the very child they had once discarded. "We were hoping," my father began, his voice trailing off. He looked at Ben, then back at me, his eyes pleading. "We were hoping you could help us. Just a small loan to get back on our feet." The words hung in the air, heavy with expectation. I looked at them, at their desperate faces, and for a moment, a flicker of pity ignited within me. But it was quickly extinguished by the memory of their cold-hearted abandonment. "Alone," I echoed, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. "You show up after all these years, after everything you've done, and ask for a loan." The silence returned, heavier this time, punctuated only by the muffled sobs of my mother. "You don't understand," my father pleaded, his voice cracking. We had nowhere else to turn. "No," I said, standing up, my voice firm. You don't understand. You threw me away when I was 16. You left me to fend for myself, with nothing but the clothes on my back and a heart full of pain. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them back, determined to stay strong. I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. This is my family now, I said, my voice thick with emotion, gesturing to Ben who was watching us, his innocent eyes filled with confusion. This is where my loyalty lies, and I will not let you hurt us again. My parents stared at me, their faces a mixture of shame and despair. I knew, deep down, that they probably regretted their actions, but it was too late. The damage was done. I'm sorry, I whispered, the words heavy on my tongue, but I can't help you. I walked them to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. As I closed the door behind them, I felt a strange sense of relief. The locked door represented a boundary, a protection not just for me, but for my family. I would never let anyone hurt us again. Turning back to the warmth and laughter inside, I knew I had made the right decision. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about letting others back in. It's about letting go of the pain they caused and moving on, stronger and more resilient than before.